Let's kick off. Hi everyone, welcome to another webinar. And today we are going to talk about cybersecurity for for AI architects. So we are going to cover some of these key concepts related to the cybersecurity that you need to know, and also we're going to talk about some of these famous and popular cybersecurity frameworks that can help you assess and also improve the cybersecurity posture. And then we will have some content related to different domains like cybersecurity in IoT or cybersecurity for mobile phones. And then we will have some slides on the future of cybersecurity. All right, let's start with this key concept, the zero-day vulnerabilities. So the zero-day vulnerabilities are the security flaws that are unknown to the software vendors and crucially have no patch available at the time of discovery. That's what makes them so dangerous, because attackers can exploit them before anyone even knows they exist or has a chance to fix them. The life cycle of a zero-day vulnerability typically follow a pattern. First, the vulnerability is discovered either by a researcher or a malicious actors. Then it is weaponized, meaning it turns into a usable exploit. After that, there is like a kind of level of active exploitation where attackers use it to breach the system. Eventually, it gets disclosed either responsibly or after it's already caused damage, and that's when patching begins. What's especially interesting is the economics behind 0 days. On the black market, these exploits can sell for anywhere from $10,000 to millions of dollars, depending on how impactful the target is. An exploit that can breach a major operation system or popular messaging apps is incredibly valuable to attackers, governments, and also cyber criminals. All right. So there are like some notable zero-day example, like Stocknet, which was one of the most well-known example, or Eternal Blue, which was known as MS17-010, which was a Windows SME vulnerability that got global attention when it was used in the WannaCry ransomware attack. This zero-day allowed to ransomware to spread rapidly, locking up millions of computers in over 150 countries and causing major disruption to businesses and public services. There was also the Log4Shell, a critical flaw in the widely used Apache Log4j logging library. What made this one especially alarming was how deeply embedding Log4j is across industries. It impacting everything from cloud services to consumer apps, making it a nightmare to track and patch. Now, let's talk about another key concept, which is advanced persistent threat, or APTs, referred to highly sophisticated and well-funded group that carry out targeted cyber attack, often over a long period. These aren't typical hackers. They are usually backed by nation state or large criminal organizations, and they go after specific highly valuable targets like government, corporation, or critical infrastructure. What sets APTs apart is either use of custom techniques. They often develop their own malware, use legitimate system tools known as living off the land binaries to stay hidden, and even compromise supply chain to insert malicious code before software reaches its user. The goal is to remain undetected while maintaining long-term access to system. Attributing attacks to APTs is incredibly difficult. These groups use false flags, reuse publicly available code, and carefully craft their operation to mislead investigators. In addition, geopolitical tensions often blur the lines. What looked like one country operation could easily be framed to appear as another's. This makes identifying the true source of an attack a complex and often controversial process. Let's talk about some of these notable APT group. We got this APT 28, known as Fancy Bear, is widely believed to be associated with Russian military intelligence. Next, there is this Lazarus group attributed to North Korea. What sets them apart is their focus on financially motivated attacks, which helps fund the regime. And finally, there is Equation Group, a highly advanced threat actor believed to be linked to NSA. They are known for their deep technical expertise and use of cutting-edge exploits. In fact, some of their tools were later leaked and repurposed in attacking like Eternal Blue or WannaCry, showing just how far their influence has spread, even unintentionally. Alright, so that was about the APT. Now let's talk about social engineering. Social engineering attacks exploit human psychology rather than technical vulnerabilities. Attackers use manipulation to trick people into giving up sensitive information or access. Understanding the psychological principle behind these tactics is key to recognize them. Some of the most common principles used include authority, like pretending to be a boss or IT staff, scarcity and urgency to pressure quick decision, and familiarity by mimicking known contact, and reciprocity, where attackers offer some things to get something in return. We have also pretexting, which is a strategy where attackers invent a convincing backstory or persona to build trust and extract information. This could be someone claiming to be from HR, tech support, or even a vendor. And then there is phishing, which come in many forms. We have spear phishing, targets individuals with personalized messages. Whaling, focusing on high-profile targets like executives. Wishing uses voice calls, and smishing relies on SMS messages. There's even QR code phishing, where scanning a fake QR code can lead to credential theft or malware. So these are like a talk about social engineering. Now let's talk about specifically on phishing. Phishing has evolved far beyond the classic email scam. Attackers now use several sophisticated methods to increase their chance of success, each tailored to different communication channels. Spear phishing, which we discussed, is one of the most common and dangerous forms. Instead of casting a wide net, attackers craft highly targeted email using personal details like a recipient name, job title, or recent activity to make the message seem legitimate and convincing. Which is voice phishing, takes this to the phone. Attackers might impersonate a bank, tech support, or even a company executive, trying to pressure the victim into revealing sensitive information or taking quick action. Smishing work similarly, but through text messages. These often include links that lead to fake login page or malicious downloads. Sometimes like things like delivery updates, account alerts, or promotional offers. And then phishing or QR code phishing. This newer tactic uses QR code to trick user into visiting malicious website or entering login credential. Now let's talk about supply chain attack. Supply chain attacks focus on exploiting the trust organization plays in third-party vendors and components. Instead of attacking a company directly, threat actors target a vendor, service provider, or open source project that the company depends on, essentially using a backdoor through a trusted source. The attack surface is broad. It includes software vendors, hardware manufacturers, cloud service providers, and open source libraries. If any one of these is compromised, the effects can cascade down to all their customers, sometimes affecting thousands of organizations at once. One of the biggest challenges in mitigating supply chain attack is the complexity of verification. Organizations often don't have full visibility into third-party code or infrastructure. Trust relationships make it easy for malicious updates or components to slip through undetected. Effective risk management here means thoroughly vetting vendors, monitoring third-party activity, and adopting a trust but verify approach. So let's now talk about some of the notable supply chain attacks. So we have these CCleaner attack, which was like a very prime example. CCleaner is a popular system optimization tool trusted by millions of users. In 2017, attackers managed to compromise its official software update process, injecting malware into this installer. As a result, users unknowingly downloaded a backdoor version, allowing attackers access to the system on a massive scale. Another major case was NotPetya, which spread through MedOC, a Ukrainian accounting software widely used in the region. And then there was this SolarWinds Sunburst attack. In this case, attacker, instead of malicious code into software updates for SolarWinds, they actually just inserted or injected malicious code into software updates for SolarWinds Origin platform. The update was distributed to around 18,000 organizations, including US government and also Fortune 500 companies. It went undetected for months, giving attacker long-term access to sensitive networks. All right, now we had like a very good understanding of different types of kind of like attack, third party, social engineering, supply chain. Now let's talk about the focus specifically on web application. Web applications are common targets for attackers because they often expose complex interactive features to the internet. So we have like a different level of attack vectors for web application. First, we have these injection attacks. These occur when untrusted data is sent to an interpreter as part of a command or query. The most well-known one is SQL injection, where an attacker can manipulate a database query to access all altered data. There are also variants like NoSQL, OS command, or LDAP injection, each targeting different techniques but use the same basic principle, tricking the system into executing unintended command. We also have these cross-site scripting, or XSS, involves injecting malicious script into a website, which then run in another user browsers. There are three main types of cross-site scripting. We have like the reflected one, where the attacker is in a URL or input field stored, where the malicious code is saved on the server and shown to others, and DOM-based, which exploit vulnerabilities in the browser document object model. Then there is this the third type of web application attack is cross-site request forgery, or CSRF. This attack takes advantage of authenticated user by tricking them into making unwanted requests, like changing account setting without their knowledge, often through a malicious linked or hidden form. And finally, we have server-side request forgery, or SSRF, which tricks a server into making requests on behalf of the attacker. This can be used to access internal systems not normally exposed to the internet, potentially opening door to even more serious breaches. Alright, now let's talk about the memory corruption vulnerabilities, which are among the most dangerous and complex techniques that we have for security flaws, often allowing attackers to gain full control over a system. One common example is a buffer overflow. So this happens when a program writes more data to a memory buffer than it can hold. The extra data can overflow into adjacent memory, potentially overwriting critical value like return addresses or function pointers. This can lead to crashes or allow an attacker to execute arbitrary codes. The next type is use after free. This occurs when a program continues to use memory after it has already been freed. Since the memory could now contain anything or be used by other parts of the program, this can lead to unpredictable and exploitable behavior, including crashes or data leaks. And finally, we have return-oriented programming, or ROP. So instead of injecting new code, ROP chain together small pieces of existing code called gadgets that already exist in memory. These techniques bypass security defenses like non-executable memory by reusing legitimate instruction to perform malicious tasks. Now let's talk about the cryptographic attack vectors. Even the strongest cryptographic algorithm can be undermined, not by the math itself, but by how they are implemented or integrated into the system. Let's talk about some of the key types of cryptographic attack vectors. We have implementation flaws, which are one of the most common issues. A great example is heartbleed vulnerability, where a flaw in OpenSSL allowed attacker to read sensitive data from memory, like private keys and password. It wasn't the algorithm that failed, it was the way it was coded. We had protocol weaknesses, which is another major concern. Attacks like Beast and Poodle exploited older version of TLS and SSL, forcing secure connection to downgrade to less secure protocol that could be more easily broken. And then there is this side channel attack, which don't break encryption directly, but instead gather clues from the system behavior. And finally, we have the looming quantum threat. Algorithms like Shor's algorithm could one day break widely using asymmetric encryption like RSA or ECC by factoring large number efficiently. While quantum computing are not practical there yet, preparing for this future is already a priority in cryptographic research. Another interesting topic, privilege escalation technique, which is a technique attackers use to gain higher level of access within a system than they originally had. It's critical step in many attacks because it allows intruders to move from low-level access to full control. It usually starts with a standard user account, one that has limited access to system resources and restricted permissions. This might be a regular employee account or a service account with minimal rights. From there, attackers can perform horizontal movement, which means gaining access to other user accounts at the same privilege level, like jumping from one standard user to another. While the privilege level doesn't increase, it can still help attacker gather more information or find account with better access. The real goal is the vertical escalation, moving up to a privileged user and ultimately at admin or root user. This gives full control over the system, allowing attacker to disable defenses, install persistent backdoors, and access sensitive data. They often achieve this by exploiting misconfiguration, software bugs, and also weak access control. So in terms of like the methods, there are a number of those for privilege escalation. First, there is kernel exploit. These target vulnerabilities in the operating system's kernel, which is the core part of the OS that controls everything from hardware interaction to security. If attacker can exploit a flaw here, they can bypass almost all protections and gain full system access, often achieving root or admin privileges. Then there is living off the land approach. Instead of bringing in external tools, which might trigger security alert, attacker use built-in system utilities like PowerShell, WMI, or Task Scheduler to move laterally, execute code, or escalate privilege. These tools are trusted and often overlooked by security solution, making this method effective. Finally, we have misconfiguration exploitation, which is all about identifying the weak spot in how a system is set up. This could be overlay, permissive file or directory permission, service running with excessive privileges, or missing security control. Attacker take advantage of these oversights to escalate their access without even needing a traditional exploit. Now let's talk about network-based attack vectors, which focus on intercepting, manipulating, or overwhelming network communication. These attacks can be used for spying, data theft, or service disruption, and they often rely on exploiting trust and weakness in protocols. One common vector is the man in the middle (MIT) attack. This involves intercepting communication between two parties without their knowledge. Techniques include ARP spoofing, where attackers trick a network into routing traffic through them; DNS poisoning, which redirect the user to malicious sites; and setting up raw access points that mimic legitimate Wi-Fi network to capture data. Another threat is season hijacking. Once a user is authenticated, attacker can steal session cookies or use session fixation technique to take over the active session. We also have protocol vulnerabilities, weaknesses in services like SMP, LDAP, or RDP. And exploiting these can allow attacker to move laterally, execute command remotely, and especially for unpatched and misconfigured system. And finally, we have DDoS attack. These are which comes in different forms. We have volumetric attack, flood the network with traffic. Protocol attacks target the resource like firewalls or load balancer. And application layer attacks aims to exhaust a specific service like web services. Together, all these vectors highlight just how critical network security and segmentation are in the modern defense strategy. All right. So we already talked about some of the key concepts. Let's start to talk about some of the frameworks, cybersecurity frameworks that you need to be aware. We start with this NIST cybersecurity framework, which is a widely adopted guideline that helps organizations manage and reduce cybersecurity risk. It's structured around 4 core functions that provide a comprehensive view of how to build and maintain a strong security posture. The first function is identify. This involves understanding your assets, system, and data, as well as assessing risk and establishing governance. It sets the foundation for everything else because you cannot protect what you don't know you have. Next is protect. This function focuses on putting safeguards in place. This includes access control, security awareness training, and data protection measures. The goal here is to limit or contain the impact of potential cybersecurity events. Then we have detect, which is all about recognizing when something goes wrong. It involves identifying anomalies, implementing continuous monitoring, and establishing effective detection process so threats don't go unnoticed. Once a threat is detected, we move to respond. This means having a plan in place to manage and mitigate the incident. Key action includes communication, analysis, and coordination across teams to contain the damage quickly. Finally, there is recover, which focus on getting system back to normal, learning from the incidents, and improving processes to prevent future occurrence. It includes recovery planning, communication with the stakeholders, and implementing lessons learned. All right, now let's talk about the implementation tiers of NIST cybersecurity framework. So these implementation tiers helps organizations evaluate how effectively they are managing cybersecurity risk. These tiers don't measure maturity in a strict sense. They reflect how well risk management practices are integrated across the organization. So we have tier 1, which is the partial, which is the most basic level. At this level, risk management practices are largely ad hoc and reactive. There is limited awareness of cybersecurity risk and no formalized processes in place. Then in tier 2, we have the risk-informed level, which means that some risk management practices have been approved and documented, but they are not applied consistently across the entire organization. There is some level of understanding of cybersecurity, but implementation may vary between departments. Then we have the third tier, which is the repeatable, where the organization begins to operate with a formal organization-wide approach. Policies and procedures are in place, regularly updated, and consistently followed. Cybersecurity risk management is integrated into the overall business practices. And then in tier 4, which is the adaptive, which is the highest level. At this level, organization not only have mature proactive cybersecurity programs, but they also use real-time threat intelligence and lesson learned to continuously improve their defense and adapt to evolving threats. So another cybersecurity framework is MITRE ATT&CK framework, which is a globally recognized knowledge base of adversary behavior. It maps out how attackers operate step by step from initial access to impact. It's incredibly valuable for understanding threat and also strengthening the defenses. The framework is divided into several matrices, each tailored to a specific environment. So we have the enterprise matrix, which covers tactics and techniques used against platforms like Windows, Mac OS, and Linux, as well as cloud environment and containers. This is the most widely used metrics in cybersecurity operation today. Then we have the mobile metrics, which focus on iOS and Android, outlining how attackers exploit mobile devices through app abuse, SMS phishing, permission misuse, and more. Then we have the ICS metrics, which is designed for industrial control system, like those used in manufacturing or energy infrastructure. It highlights techniques that can disrupt or manipulate physical processes critical for securing operational technology. Now, in terms of the implementation, so this framework is not just a reference, it's a powerful tool for improving real-world cybersecurity through practical implementation. So first we have these threat intelligence mapping. By comparing observed behaviors like the specific command line use or network patterns with known ATT and CK tactics and techniques, analysts can identify the likely goal and tools of an attacker. This helps translate raw data into actionable insight. Next is threat hunting. Security teams use ATT and CK to proactively search for evidence of specific techniques within their environment, looking for indicators that traditional defense might have missed. It turns ATT and CK into a guidebook for uncovering hidden attack. Then there is defense planning. By mapping which techniques are most relevant to your industry or environment, you can prioritize which security control to implement or improve. This ensures your resources are focused on the most likely threat. And finally, we have gap analysis, which help identify where your current defense falls short. By reviewing which ATT and CK techniques you can detect, block, or respond to, you get a clear picture of where to invest into new tools, training, and processes. Let's go to the world of ISO. ISO 27001 and ISO 27002 are internationally recognized standards for managing information security. So they provide a comprehensive framework for building, maintaining, and continuously improving an information security management system, or ISMS. So ISO 27001 focuses on the structure and requirement for establishing an ISMS, while ISO 27002 provides detailed guidelines on the controls organization can implement to protect information. These controls are organized into 14 domains, covering everything from access control and cyber and cryptography to supplier relationship and also incident management. In total, there are 114 controls to choose from, depending on your organizational need and risk profile. A key part of the standard for ISO is the risk assessment. Organizations might identify their asset, evaluate potential threat and vulnerability, and determine the impact of various risks. This can allow to do a more informed decision on which control to implement. Achieving ISO 27001 certification means your ISMS has been formally audited and validated as meeting the standard requirements. It demonstrates a strong, proactive approach to information security and is often a key differentiator for customers and partners. So the next framework is CIS, or the CIS critical security controls, which are a prioritized set of best practices designed to help organizations defend against the most common and dangerous cyber threat. They are practical, actionable, and also widely adopted across industries. There are 18 total controls, organization into 3 categories. The first one is the basic control, which forms the foundation of a solid security program. This includes things like inventorying assets, security configuration, and managing access. Fundamental steps every organization should take, regardless of their size. The controls are also aligned with the implementation groups, or IGs, which helps tailor recommendation based on an organizational resource and risk level. IG1 is for a smaller or less complex organization, focusing on essential protection. IG2 add more depth for mid-sized or moderately resourced environment. And IG3 is the most advanced, aimed at organization facing sophisticated frame. While this framework includes 20 control families, which breaks down into individual safeguards, the 18 main controls serve as a comprehensive roadmap for strengthening cybersecurity posture step by step. The Zero Trust architecture is a modern security model built on the principle of never trust, always verify, instead of assuming that the user or devices inside a network are safe. Zero Trust continuously evaluates trust based on context and behavior. It starts with the device validation, making sure every device accessing the network meets security standards. This could include checking for the up-to-date patches, endpoint protection, or configuration compliance. Alongside that, we have identity verification, which is key. All users must go through continuous authentication, not just a one-time login. This often includes multi-factor authentication and also dynamic access check based on behavior and risk. The model enforces least privilege, giving user and system only the minimum access they need to do their jobs. This limits the potential damage of an account or device to be compromised. Continuous monitoring plays a critical role here as well. It provides real-time insight into user and device activity, enabling quick detection and response to anomalies. And finally, microsegmentation, which helps contain threat by dividing the network into smaller isolated zones. This means even if one area is breached, the attacker cannot easily move laterally through the network. So these are like the 5 main domains within the Zero Trust architecture. Now let's talk about the OWASP, which offers a range of well-respected tools and frameworks to guide organizations in improving and validating application security. These methodologies are widely used across the industry to ensure the software is not only functional but also secure. So we have the OWASP testing guide, which is a comprehensive manual that outlines how to test web application for a wide range of security issues. It covers everything from information gathering to authentication, session management, and input validation, making it a go-to resource for penetration testers and also developers. Next, we have the Application Security Validation Standard, or ASVS, which provides a set of well-defined security requirements for developing and testing secure applications. It's structured across different levels of assurance, allowing teams to align security goals with the sensitivity of the system they are building. Then we have the Software Assurance Maturity Model, or SAM, which is a framework for evaluating and improving an organization's software security practices. It helps identify gaps in your current security program and also provide a roadmap for maturing over time. And of course, the OWASP Top 10, which are perhaps the most recognized resources. It lists the most critical web application security risks, such as injection, broken authentication, and security misconfiguration, which is a great starting point for prioritizing security efforts. So the OWASP Top 10, as I mentioned, it's a widely recognized list of the most critical security risks for web application. The 2021 updates reflect the threat patterns, with some categories renamed or restructured to better reflect the real-world application. At the top of the list was the broken access control, which refers to flaws that allow users to act outside their intended permission. For example, accessing another user data or admin functions without proper authorization. And this is common and often critical issue because it directly compromises data confidentiality and system integrity. Next, we have the cryptographic failure, which provides known as a sensitive data exposure. This category highlights problems with encryption, like using outdated algorithm, improper key management, or failing to enforce HTTPS. Then we have the injection one, which remains a major concern. This occurs when user input is treated as code or a comment, like a SQL injection, where malicious input alter the database queries, and it can lead to data theft, corruption, or even full system control compromise. The next framework that we're going to talk is the purple team. So purple teaming bridges the gap between red teams, who emulate attackers, and blue teams, who defend against them. Instead of working separately, they collaborate to improve an organization's security posture through continuous learning and refinement. One of the key components is adversary emulation. This involves creating realistic attack scenarios that mimics the tactics, techniques, and also procedures, or TTPS, of real-world threat actors. They are not just simulation, they are grounded in threat intelligence to ensure relevance and authenticity. Then we have the feedback loop, which is what really sets purple teaming apart. Red team tests the environment with emulated attacks, and blue team responding. Then both sides review what worked and what didn't, making improvement in real time. This ongoing cycle helps sharpen both offensive and defensive skills. A big part of this process is detection engineering, building and testing detection for specific attack behaviors. Instead of waiting for alerts to fail, team proactively identify gaps, tune their tools, and strengthen monitoring based on what they've learned through testing. The next popular framework that you need to know is the security operation frameworks. We provide a structured operation to manage cybersecurity incidents, from detection to recovery. The goal here is to respond quickly and effectively, minimizing damage and restoring normal operation. It starts with the preparation, which is where organizations develop their incident response plan, define roles and responsibility, and build capabilities like monitoring, logging, and training. Being well prepared is what enables a fast and coordinated responses when an incident occurs. Next is identification, detecting and analyzing potential threat. This involves monitoring system, review alerts, and gather evidence to determine whether an incident is occurring and how severe it might be. Once identified, the focus shifts to containment. And the goal here is to limit the impact by isolating affected systems, stopping lateral movement, and preserving critical assets while maintaining evidence for investigation. Eradication is the next one, which removes malicious code, closing vulnerabilities, and ensuring that the attacker no longer has access. It's about fully cleaning the environment to prevent reinfection. And finally, we have the recovery, which involves restoring system, validating the integrity, and also returning operation to normal while continuously monitor for signs of lingering threat. SOC visibility throughout, which is a strategic model that helps security operation centers gain comprehensive visibility across the environment. It combines three critical technologies: NDR, EDR, and SIEM, each covering a different layer of security telemetry. First, we have the NDR, which is network detection and response. These tools focus on analyzing network traffic patterns to identify suspicious behaviors, such as lateral movement or data exfiltration. And this is especially used for spotting threats that don't leave traces on endpoint, like advanced persistent threat or zero-day exploit moving through the network. Next is EDR, which is endpoint detection and responses. EDR monitors activities on individual hosts or devices, tracking things like process creation, file modification, and registry changes. This gives analysts detailed insight into what happens on user machine and servers, making it essential for investigating malware infection or privilege escalation attacks. And finally, we have SIEM, or Security Information and Event Management, which act as the central hub. It collects and correlates logs from access across the infrastructure, network, endpoint, application, and more. SIEM helps analysts detect patterns, generate alerts, and maintain compliance by providing a unified view of security data. Together, these three pillars form a layered defense strategy, giving SOC team the visibility they need to detect, investigate, and also respond to threat more effectively. Next is about secure architecture design. So designing a security system start with the principle of secure by design. This means security and privacy are not added after the fact. They are built into the architecture from the very beginning. Every component, service, and interaction is planned with potential threat in mind. A key concept here is defense in depth. Rather than relying on a single layer of protection, multiple security controls are placed throughout the system. So even if one control fails, like a firewall or access restriction, others are in place to slow down or stop an attack. We also apply the least privilege principle. Every user, process, or service is given only the access it absolutely needs, nothing more. This reduces the potential impact of a compromised account or misused credential. And finally, we have security boundaries, which play a vital role. This involves segmenting the networks and isolating critical system or components. For example, separating internal database from public-facing web servers, limit exposure, and making it harder for attacker to move laterally within the environment. Now let's go and talk about some of these security in different domains. We start with the container and cloud security. So as organizations increasingly adopt cloud-native technologies like containers, Kubernetes, and serverless function, new security challenges emerge that require a specialized attention. So starting with the container, one of the biggest risks is container escape. Attackers use techniques like kernel exploit or abusing mounted volume to break out of the container and gain access to the host system. And running privileged containers, which have elevated access, can significantly increase the risk. Proper isolation and restricting capabilities are essential defenses here. In terms of Kubernetes, the leading orchestration platform for containers, it actually introduced its own set of challenges. Misconfigured RBAC or role-based access control can get excessive privilege, while weaker or misused networking policies may allow unauthorized communication between pods. Secret management is also a concern, and sensitive data like API keys and passwords must be securely stored rotated. In serverless environments such as AWS Lambda or Azure Functions, the attacks surface look different. Here, threat includes event injection, where attackers trigger unintended behavior by manipulating input, and risk from dependency vulnerabilities in third-party package. Serverless functions also often suffer from insufficient monitoring, making it harder to detect and respond to malicious activity. So now let's talk about offensive security, which is all about simulating real-world attacks to identify vulnerabilities before adversaries can exploit them. The methodology typically follows a structured approach to ensure tests are controlled, ethical, and effective. It begins with setting clear objectives. This includes defining goals, scope, and rules of engagement, such as what systems can be targeted, what techniques are allowed, and also how to avoid disrupting critical services. Next is planning, where teams conduct reconnaissance to gather entrance on the target environment. This also involves allocating the right tools and resources and mapping out potential attack paths based on identifying weaknesses and known threat actor techniques. The execution phase is where testing happens. This involves exploiting vulnerabilities, gaining access, and possibly establishing persistent or performing lateral movement, all while staying within the defined scope. The goal isn't just access, but also understanding how far an attacker could go. Finally, the reporting phase, which documents all findings, detailed vulnerabilities, discover business impact, and also remediation recommendation. A well-structured report provides both technical insight and also executive takeaway to help prioritize fixes. So now let's talk about the exploit development lifecycle. So this lifecycle outlines the step-by-step process attackers or security researchers use to turn a vulnerability into a working exploit. Understanding this lifecycle helps defenders anticipate and prevent potential attacks. It all starts with the vulnerability research. This involves discovering and analyzing flaws in software, hardware, or configuration. Researchers may use fuzzing, code analysis, or behavior observation to uncover weaknesses that could be exploited. Once the vulnerability is identified, the next step is creating a proof of concept or POC. This is a small piece of code designed to demonstrate that the vulnerability is real and can be triggered. It's usually not fully weaponized, just enough to validate the issue. If the POC works, the exploit moves into the weaponization phase. This involves refining the code to make it reliable, stable, and also capable of delivering a payload, whether that's gaining remote access, executing commands, or exfiltrating data. Weaponizing exploits are often more robust. And finally, the exploit goes through testing. Developer tests it across different system configuration and security setups to ensure it works consistently. This step is crucial for both attackers who want reliability and defenders who need to assess how far a threat might go. So now let's talk about the advanced persistent techniques, which are used by skilled threat actors to maintain long-term access to a system, often while staying completely hidden from traditional detection tools. One such a method is bootkit. This type of malware infects the system boot sector, the code that runs before the operating system loads. Because it executes so early, it can bypass many security control and load malicious component before antivirus or endpoint protection are even active. Next is rootkit. Rootkits are designed to hide the presence of malicious files, process, or even network activity by modifying how the operating system functions. They operate at a very low level, often in a kernel space, making them incredibly hard to detect and remove. Then there is the firmware implant. These are perhaps the most persistent of all. The malware is embedded directly into the firmware of a device like a hard drive, network card, or motherboard. Even if the operating system is completely wiped or reinstalled, the implant can survive and also reinfect the system. So now let's talk about another method or which is counter forensics, which is referred to a technique attacker used to evade detection, obstruct investigation, and also destroy evidence. These methods are designed to challenge analysts and delay or prevent attribution. One common tactics here is anti-memory. Attackers use methods to corrupt or block memory acquisition tools, making it harder for investigators to extract, violate data like encryption keys, process list, or running malware from RAM. Another is log manipulation. By altering or deleting system log, attacker can erase record of their action, such as logging, command execution, or file access, effectively covering their track and misleading incident response. Timestamp alteration, sometimes called timestamping, involves changing the created, modified, or access time of files. This confuses timeline analysis and can make it harder to determine when the attack actually occurs. Finally, secure deletion techniques ensure that once the data is deleted, it cannot be recovered, even with forensic tools. This involves overwriting files or using specialized tools to remove all traces from storage media. So now let's talk about some of these emerging security techniques that we have. So as the threat landscape evolves, the technology also used to defend against it also evolves. Let's talk about some of these emerging security technologies that are helping the organization stay ahead of the modern threats. First, we have the extended detection and response, or XDR, which brings together data from across endpoint, network, cloud, and email into a single unified platform and enable faster, more accurate threat detection and response by correlating even across different layers of the environment, something traditional silo tools often miss. Next is confidential computing. This technology protects data in use, which has traditionally been the most vulnerable state. It does this by using trusted execution environment, or TEES, which is a secure hardware-based area of memory that keeps sensitive data isolated even from the system itself. It's particularly valuable in cloud computing where multiple tenants share the same infrastructure. Finally, we have security orchestration, automation, and responses, or SOAR, which is a platform to help streamline and automate security operation by integrating tools, standardized incident workflow, and enabling rapid responses, which reduce manual effort and improve consistency and allow analysts to focus on higher priority tasks. Now let's also quickly touch on the AI and ML in cybersecurity. So on the defensive side, AI and ML are used for anomaly detection, spotting unused pattern in network or user behavior that could indicate an attack. On the offensive side, we have automated vulnerability discovery, where ML models scan code or system to find weak points faster than manual method. There is also adversarial machine learning, where attackers manipulate input to false AI models, like tricking an image classifier or bypassing an anomaly detector. Of course, these techniques come with challenges. One major issue is false positive, where AI system might flag harmless activity as suspicious. There is also training data poisoning, where attackers corrupt the data used to train ML models. Compromising their reliability and explainability remains a concern, as many ML models are black box. So in terms of the critical infrastructure security, or CIS, we already like energy, water, transportation, and healthcare rely heavily on industrial control system, or ICS, or SCADA system to operate. Security in these environments actually present unique challenges as well. So ICS, these environments often include legacy system, proprietary techniques, and air-gapped network that were not designed with cybersecurity in mind. SCADA system, which control and monitor industrial processes remotely, face traditional risks from remote access, growing interconnectivity, and also the need for real-time operation. To address these risks, organizations rely on sector-specific framework like NERC CIP for the energy sector, IEC 62443 for industrial automation, and NIST SP 800-82 for general ICS security guidance. Lastly, there is a growing focus on physical cyber convergence, recognizing that physical and digital security are increasingly intertwined. A cyber attack on a control system can have real-world consequences, such as shutting down a power grid or disrupting power or water treatment facilities. And effective security must consider both dimensions together. So similar things for the IoT domain. So I'm not gonna go into more details, but then there are like some level of common vulnerabilities that many IoT devices should be default credential. This is a very, I would say, very known and popular vulnerability in IoT devices. Also, from a device perspective, one major issue is heterogeneity. IoT ecosystem includes a wide mix of devices from different vendors, each with its own protocol and standard. These devices often have constrained resources, like limited memory and processing power, which makes it difficult to run traditional security tools. And due to their long life cycle, device may remain in use and vulnerable for many years. In the mobile world, So these are also a major target for attackers due to their widespread use. So there are like some platform-specific attacks, like on iOS, attacker may use jailbreaking to bypass Apple restriction and gain root-level access. On Android, routing and bootloader exploit also is known. Next, we have application security issues. Many mobile apps suffer from flaws like insecure data storage, weak encryption, and improper certificate validation. And lastly, mobile malware is also growing. This includes surveillance tools, banking trojans, and even ransomware targeting smartphone. In terms of like the embedded system, also we have a lot of vulnerabilities and issues there. A key component of this system is hardware security module, or HSMS, which are dedicated devices designed for secure key storage and cryptographic operation. Secure boot established a root of trust by verifying that each stage of the system startups process is cryptographically signed and unmodified. Then we have side channel analysis, which is a more advanced threat, and attackers use techniques like power analysis, electromagnetic emission monitoring, and timing attack to infer sensitive data such as the keys by observing how the system behaves. Finally, we have firmware security, which is also crucial. This includes having secure update mechanism to prevent unauthorized firmware installation. So healthcare, so again, we have medical devices, vulnerabilities, patient data protection, and also threat, like a specific threat landscape, which is growing, like ransomware or insider threats, which are relevant to the healthcare. We also, in this space, we have like some regulatory frameworks like HIPAA, which is Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, which sets national standard for safeguarding PHI, or protected health information. Building on HIPAA is HITECH, which is Health Information Technology for Economic and Clinical Health Act, which was introduced to promote the adoption of electronic health record and also to strengthen HIPAA enforcement. The FDA also plays a key role when it comes to medical device security. The FDA provides cybersecurity guidance for manufacturing, outlining expected for secure design, risk management, and post-market monitoring. So there is also these some of these we talk about the SolarWinds. I'm not going to go into the details. These are like some attacks that happens that I think we don't have enough time to go through those. We talk about the APT, and also let's talk about the ransomware, which is I think it's good to cover here. So ransomware has come a long way from its early days. It started by targeting individual system, often through phishing email or malicious downloads. Victim would find their file encrypted and receive a demand for payment. But over time, ransomware become more organized and impactful. Today, attacks increasingly focus on enterprise network, aiming to take down entire organization. So attackers often gain access through compromised credential or exposed services, then move laterally before encrypting critical system across the network. We're also seeing a rise in multiple extortion tactics. In addition to encryption data, attackers now steal sensitive information, threatening to launch DDoS attacks or even notify customer and partners to pressure victims into paying quickly. Another major shift is the rise of ransomware as a service, or RAS. This model lets ransomware developer lease their malware to affiliates who carry out the attack. In return, the developer get a cut of the ransomware payment. It makes ransomware more accessible to less skilled attacker while increasing the scale and frequency of the attack. So again, there are like some notable one that I think we can skip. So some things about the nation-state cyber operation, which is the most advanced and well-resourced form of cyber activity. So one major category is influence operation, where the goal is to manipulate public opinion or interfere with the political process. This includes spreading disinformation and also targeting election infrastructure or whatever. There is also sabotage, which involves disrupting or destroying critical infrastructure such as energy grid, transportation system, or communication network. Nation-state actors are also known for their high level of technical sophistication. They often deploy custom implants, leveraging zero-day vulnerabilities, and use advanced stealth techniques to maintain long-term access and avoid detection. So I think attribution challenges, we can ignore this. Let's just go, I think, to the hardware level. We already discussed some of these items that I think we can exclude from this presentation, and then let's go talk about some of these future cybersecurity landscape. So this is actually reshaped by rapidly evolving techniques and increasingly complex threats. And to stay ahead, organizations will need to embrace a new generation of security strategies. One major trend is AI-driven security. This includes autonomous defense systems that can detect, respond, and also even predict threats in real time. Another key focus is building quantum-safe infrastructure. With quantum computing on the horizon, we'll see widespread adoption of post-quantum cryptographic to protect sensitive communication and data. Zero trusted architecture will also become standard practice. This approach requires organizations to verify explicitly at every step, apply least privilege access, and assume that no user, device, or service is trustworthy. Lastly, we have privacy enhancing technologies which play a crucial role. Tools like confidential computing and secure multi-party computing (MPC) will allow data to be processed securely even in untrusted environment, supporting compliance and trust in an increasingly data-driven world. Key takeaways. To wrap up, we have like 4 key takeaways. First, defense in depth remains a cornerstone of effective cybersecurity. No single control is foolproof. So layering multiple safeguard access endpoint network at identity and application provide resilience. Second, cybersecurity is not one-time effort. It requires continuous evolution. Third, we cannot overlook the human element. People are often the weakest link through phishing, misconfiguration, or social engineering, but they can also be the strongest defense when well trained. Finally, adversarial thinking is key. The more we understand how attackers operate, their tool techniques and mindset, the better we can anticipate, detect, and stop them. Thinking like an attacker is often what makes the difference in a strong defensive strategy. Awesome. Thanks everyone for joining this. I hope you enjoyed it. So, and then now we can open for questions.